Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Identity Radicals. I'm Mike Towers, the Chief Security and Trust Officer at Veza, and today I'm thrilled to be joined by Matt Hart, who's the CISO at PTC. I'm sure many of us remember the early days of PTC when it was solely about CAD, but obviously today it's come a long way since then. It's a global software company. It's headquartered right down the road from me in Boston, although I'm not in Boston today, but I know exactly where it is. And they develop software solutions for product lifecycle management, augmented reality, Internet of Things, and related services. So, Matt, great to have you on today. You mind just quickly introducing yourself?
Yeah, sure thing. And again, thanks for having me on the show. Love to chat about this kind of stuff. Matt Hart, I've been the CISO here at PTC for 3 years. Before that, I actually had a couple of different roles outside of security. I hadn't been a security officer for a few different roles. I've been a CIO in the past. I've been a CTO in the past. So a really broad experience across the technologies, and that kind of pushed me back towards the security space. So I've had a lot of those kinds of different roles, but man, knee deep in it these days, knee deep in the security side of this. So again, happy to be here.
No, that's awesome. I actually think, frankly, that security leadership needs more non-security lifers in it. So it's great to have you in the club, and look forward to hearing your insights here. And so glad that you can join us for the conversation.
Sure
Today, we're
thing.
going to dive into a topic that's fundamentally changing, I think, how we approach identity, and about how identity is the new control plane. And I know, Matt, you've been driving security transformation both at PTC and previous roles. I know you've been around at a few companies, like you said, you've had different backgrounds, and spanning a lot of difference across both technology and security. So I know that many of us have grown up with security around building walls, whether it's networks, firewalls, VPNs, network segmentation. I mean, that world is going away, if not gone already. But how would you describe how you've seen the strategies evolve?
Well, it's such a strange time for a lot of people who have been network administrators their whole life. In fact, one of my the chief directors of corporate security for me was around during the initial build out of a lot of the Cisco infrastructure, creating redundant networks, changing network administrators' minds about their centricity in the world is it's a tough sell sometimes. It's a real tough sell to say actually you're not the center of the universe. They don't want to hear it. But it's absolutely true. And I've been on this journey. We've actually spent the last couple of years specifically trying not to keep building walls as a way to protect the company from harm. And a lot of that is technology that we can use to do it, but it's also, like I said, it's just kind of making people understand, finding ways to explain that building those walls doesn't matter anymore, right? You still have to have them. PTC, like a lot of companies, we've got an intranet still, we've got internal apps still, so we still have to have some defendable walls, but we don't rely on those anymore. We don't
Right.
say, okay, we have a firewall, we're safe now.
Yep.
Awesome. Right. We can't say that anymore. And the way I told my board about it, and I'm sure people have used this metaphor before, is the hotel, right?
Right.
It's such a great selling way to talk about the board because they all stay in hotels. I think you're in a hotel right now.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Yeah. So you got your identity card, right? But you can walk in the front door. You could try any door at the hotel, right? Now, maybe it's nighttime and you can click that little thing and it lets you in, but you can still check every single door, right? So that zero trust transformation is about, hey, maybe you should use that card to access everything, not just the front door.
Right.
And we've been on that journey, and now we're really just knee deep in trying to sort through the identity side of this. So it's a huge shift. I think everyone's seeing it, but it's just what 30 years of VPNs, Mike. How long have we been using VPNs?
Yeah. You're right.
Like people just think like that. Okay, I got one more story about this. So I was talking to a senior developer, a fellow, right, high level developer in the company who shall remain nameless. And we were talking about these vulnerabilities that we needed to get remediated. It looked really high critical. And he says to me, he says, look, Matt, the only people who have access to that Kubernetes cluster are admins. And your vulnerability is a elevated privilege vulnerability. I give everybody root, so that doesn't apply to me. And I'm like, You just self-owned. You just
Right.
self-owned yourself, buddy. Right. But he's thinking that, well, we're protected. Only admins can get in, and I just give them all root anyways. So there's that mindset change that we're thinking that the perimeter, even like high-end, really, really valuable developers still think, well, I'll build a perimeter around my clusters and everything will be fine. So anyways, that's my story.
No, it actually is really part and parcel to where we're trying to focus is on the permissions and entitlement side. So that's a really, really powerful example. And it's also, frankly, another strong indicator as to why there's been so much focus on zero trust from a networking perspective. But you and I both know that there's a lot of focus and necessary focus for zero trust on the access control side.
Yep.
What do you think about challenges where the traditional network controls that we've tried to use in the past are actually creating friction without adding real security? So what and I know that we're trying like heck to get rid of that, but what catalysts have you seen to trigger a shift away from using that network and frankly introducing that friction?
Well, the biggest one was, and again, maybe not naming vendors, but about a year and a half ago, there was a blast of really high level exploited vulnerabilities in our VPN provider's product. And we had already been looking at moving to like a Zscaler model. And that we immediately pivoted away from VPNs. And I took every single VPN out because not only was there the risk, but once I took it out, everyone's like, this is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
This is amazing. Like just having my identity and of course a trusted device, and then I can get wherever I need to get, both externally on the intranet or internet, but also the intranet. They're like, this is amazing, right? So people didn't even realize how much friction VPNs were giving them in their life. The service desk saw their calls drop down. Now, new calls for new problems, right? Zscalers were kind of free problems, but all the VPN issues went away for the group. So a lot of those networking tools, and we had started to get into this network segmentation mindset, and I just said, stop. We have to stop. We have to stop doing that. We're not going to protect this at level 3. We're doing this at level 7. So a lot of those network controls. One, how do you even manage them when half your company is being managed out of SaaS applications?
Correct. So lost you all the traffic internally, just to have 90% of it go out again.
Right. So it's been really interesting. We found this really tough places where we still have to use network perimeters to control, like labs. Like we do IoT, and IoT is a tough nut to crack, right? If you've got a bunch of IoT devices that you're trying to figure out, you're trying to security test, sooner or later you just have to put them all in a room connected to the devices, and then there's not a lot of good product out there for that. But mostly we just moved entirely away, network cafe model all the way.
Yep. That makes complete sense. Let's shift gears a little bit to the identity context when it comes to something like or process like incident response. When you're investigating potential compromises or your team is looking at compromises, how has identity context changed your approach?
I'll tell you, it's night and day. And I've had, again, another recent experience where, and I've got to just fall on my own sword here. I and a couple of my team members got taken by our own honeypot, Mike. And so we'd set up this deception, and we'd gone down there, and someone had set up, and I was like, oh my God, look at what we just found in Wiz, right? We've got all this malware in here. But the very first set of questions wasn't like, what's wrong with our network? It was, what was the identity that was used to create these? What else did they have access to? When did they last log in? What groups are they in at the sort of cloud administrator level, which is where we thought the problem was going to be. So we didn't even, the network never came up. Right. It was immediately the diagnostics and the forensics started with identity, right? It's like, who is this? Who did this? Who has done this thing, right? Which traced it back to of course, my security engineer who set up the hotspot.
Yeah, the identity really tell the real story. I've had a couple of scenarios in my past where part of the challenge was identities being given just over time. The constant requests are, I want access like Jane or Jill or whomever next to me, and then I keep accumulating access, and the relationships when those people are 2 or 3 jobs away, they're doing completely different jobs, but they have very, very similar access profiles. And that's come up a couple of incidents where you're wondering, just over time, when you're looking at these incidents and you're looking at the blast radius, if you will, how the heck they got so much access that they're nowhere near in leveraging.
Yeah. PTC is about to celebrate its 40th anniversary as a company next week. Like, it's been around a long time. And the amount, and we have people who have been here who are in the, employee number less than 100. Been here since the beginning. And we started to do a little research. And to your point, like, you can get a lot of privileges in 40 years. You can have a lot of job changes over time. So the challenge is real there. And, so much of what we're doing is right now is still very manual, right? And and we know it's not sustainable, but we're chasing these things down going, hey, what about this? Why did we see that? And then we're just diving into, again, the myriad of different identity products that we have, because 40 years of identity products.
Oh, yeah. Yep. Organizations are really, really good at granting access. They're not very good at taking it away. We've seen that over the years.
Yeah. I wish I could say we're different.
All right, another thorny issue I'd love to get your take on, and this is something near and dear to my heart, frankly, because before I moved into security, this is the job that I was doing. So let's tackle and think about third-party access and third-party identity risks. Every CISO I talk to and every technology leader I talk to struggles with this: contractors, vendors, service providers. How do we have any hope of handling identity governance when we don't control the entire life cycle?
I have to believe yes, Mike. You put me in a corner. I have to say the answer is yes, because like every other CISO, I'm trying to sort through this. And again, we have all these manual mechanisms where we're trying to chase this down. And I think a lot of it for us came down to, do we even know the different types of third parties? Right? Are we properly differentiating between the contractor that brings us lunch every Wednesday and the developer who's just a one-off, a contractor off the street, but essentially is there for months and months and months at a time, versus like a Deloitte where they're coming in and doing a specific project for X amount of time, but they're not bringing the same people every single day, right? Like they're cycling through for the project based on the need. So we've just been trying to get our heads wrapped around, what are the different types of third parties that we're even talking about, because those personas have different needs in different times. And how do we figure out the birthright accesses that we give them? And I'll tell you, those are a little easier to turn off than employees, right? Right. Those are easier to flip the switch on those, at least for the things that come with our SSO and our SAML integrations. So, but I'm still knee deep in this one, Mike. I'm all ears if you got something.
No, it's one of those things where it's really, really tough one. I mean, it's a fundamental challenge when the business relationship is on one schedule, access is on another schedule, and to your point, the types of work that these third parties are doing is there's patterns. Don't get me wrong. And I think one of the things we could do is to try to build an access pattern or some sort of access patterns based on the category of third party they are. An outsourced partner needs different access than a collaboration partner, needs different access than a service provider. So yeah, it's have you guys tried any tricks internally or anything that you're working on that is helping here?
Well, one of the things that we're doing is just making sure that we're not overdoing things, right? So now we put a lot more scrutiny at the front end, and we're hoping to find. I've looked at a couple of different products. There's great stuff happening in the space around saying like, hey, take a look at all my identities and tell me what we think they are versus what their access privileges actually tell us they do. And then when we look at that and we take a look at, okay, here's the internal identities, because a lot of our third parties, we give them identities, right? We give them a ptc.com, not all of them, right? So we're just sorting through that. But the reason I'm doing so much manual work with my IAM team, one is I've got kind of a greenfield opportunity to put in some new tooling, which not everybody has. Everybody else we're all half into some IGA integration. But the other one is it's garbage in, garbage out.
Right.
right? If I don't know what I want and what we're doing, and we go and we set up an infrastructure around how we're going to govern this and how we're going to give a bunch of the right access and take away the right access, but my team doesn't understand what the challenges are within this company specifically versus just broadly speaking, then it's going to go wrong. So we're just focused on understanding what are those different types, because I mean, we're a software company.
Yeah.
7,500 employees, about 1,500 contractors, third parties.
Right.
My problem isn't, I don't have 100,000 contractor problem. Right. It's actually something that I feel pretty confident that we can solve with some understandings around it.
Yeah.
Any good trick? I don't.
Well, I know one of the things that I've tried really hard to do is to at least have this conversation with the business leaders and not keep it confined within like the technology or the security teams, because the business sees, for example, that for every 100, enabled third-party accounts, only 20 have been used in the last 6 months. I know it's an extreme example. That'll be pretty eye-opening for most business leaders, and at least try to get some level of automation put in so that there's a request, better request workflow. I mean, if you're going to try to automatically take access away, then you better be damn good at giving it back. So just working on a little bit more automation there, I think, is another thing that, but it's definitely not easy.
We're partnering with HR and getting a really good partnership there, to make sure that it's being handled kind of in a single shop there. So everything goes into one place, and then we can deal with it downstream. And then we have great partnership with our legal organization. They're very interested in us getting this right. So they're helping us apply, I heard someone say, polite but insistent pressure.
Oh, that's nice. I'm going to steal that.
Absolutely.
Let's pivot one more time here and talk about, obviously, I think I saw that this was one of the fastest growing and most mentioned areas recently at RSA and other sessions. But let's talk about machine identities. So obviously there's an explosion of them. Some of the statistics that we've seen across our customer base, frankly, here at Veza, is that for every human identity, there's about 17 machine identities. When you think about service accounts, APIs, and automated workflows, how are you guys thinking about that and trying to address them?
The one is that 1 to 17 is approximately correct from what we see as well. That's actually a pretty good. I think we just rounded up 20 to 1, make it sound really great. It's 20 to 1. We just determined that that's true. So what we're looking at is, I heard someone say that an API is just another identity. And while that sounds nice, right, we can't treat them the same. They wanted us to treat them the same. And I'm here to say that if we try to treat an API like a human identity versus something that a human identity is leveraging, right, to get something out of it, or a machine is leveraging. So we're really careful on the API side to not try too much to make it seem like it's this, like we're doing the same thing. But we've been cleaning up API tokens. We've been cleaning this up for a couple of months now. This is, I mean, maybe behind my contractors is the most talked about thing that we're trying to solve for.
Yeah, and I have to say, it's funny. The joke is you can't have a technology conversation nowadays without it saying AI. But I would say this is an area where maybe the hype is not as big as the reality, because as hard as machine identities and non-human identities are, when you start to add AI to the mix, it's a whole new dimension, because it's basically under the covers how AI works. I assume PTC and your leadership there, you're trying like hell to leverage AI and leverage the power of AI, and it's entering some of these challenges as well.
Wait, what's AI?
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. What I want to say is congratulations. We hit minute 19, minute 20 here without mentioning AI. Like, that's kind of a record.
Really hard.
Right? So, we are knee deep in it. I mean, as a CAD company, like, we have a huge opportunity in front of us for generative modeling of new products and new things that are out there to help car manufacturers, people who build airplanes, helicopters, even shoes and bicycles, to really come up and use AI to generate interesting, new, fast lighter, stronger types of products for this world, more sustainable products, you name it. So we have a strong interest on that side and a huge opportunity, and we're putting things to market as quickly as we can on that side of the business. Internally, right, how we're looking at it is a very careful approach, and I appreciate that. Right, this, to me, the AI adoption is a marathon, not a race, right? And I appreciate that, especially from the security seat. Like the business around me is allowing us to stay kind of with them on that journey, versus them just jumping into it and then I'm chasing behind, which is what CISOs have been doing to new technologies since the beginning of time.
Right.
So we're trying to stay very lockstep in terms of how we're going to use it, how we're going to protect it, how we're going to protect against it. I was at a conference and someone said that the thing you have to remember about AI, and I find this I think about this a lot, which is it's always parallel. Anything in AI that can be used for good will also be able to be used for bad. There's no hey, there's only good AI. If you can use it for good, and the example is, hey, AI, go through my network and tell me all the places where I have vulnerabilities that I need to protect. Hey, AI, go through that person's network and tell me all the vulnerabilities that I can exploit.
Right.
The AI is just AI. It's essentially morality free. So I think about that a lot in terms of how we're trying to chase down how to protect it. Now, this is an identity podcast, right?
Yep.
We haven't deployed autonomous agents yet, and we're getting real close. We're looking at what that looks like, but we haven't done that yet. So we're still human in the loop AI protection, which isn't easy, but at least it's there. And while we're developing our own LLMs, they're not super complicated. They're little LMs for littler problems. But the identity problem there is an overwhelmingly complex task that I'm not sure we're going to be able to manage AI identities without leveraging AI. And I know that sounds trite, but I'm just not sure we're going to be able to do it otherwise.
No, I think you're exactly right. I mean, when you think about the concept of an AI agent learning with a set of data that is nowhere near the data that the people who need the agent to work on their behalf will have access to, and then the autonomous agent changing and shifting depending on the task that's being asked to, the whole on behalf of models and agent to agent type of security and authorization models. It is definitely pushing the envelope of not only what we can do technically, but it's almost pushing the envelope of what we can think about mentally, like even getting our hands around this. So definitely is another layer to the identity as a control plane concept.
Yeah. If you take the machine learning kind of the machine identity and you apply it to AI identity, right? It's not just like another machine identity. We have to fundamentally understand as an industry and as a species that it's a fundamentally different thing, because you no longer have a human in the loop necessarily. Right. And you can have multiple agents who have sets of privileges who need to get something done, and they're talking to each other. And then the identity amplification, like they give each other more and more privileges to accomplish the role, because they're single-minded, right? All they're trying to do is accomplish the task. They're going to take anything they can to get there. And if there's not a human in the loop, what do we do? These are the things that keep me up at night. And by the way, I don't have an answer.
Right now, and a lot of these AI agents and these AI algorithms, frankly, they're not designed to be malicious or inappropriate. They're trained to be malicious or inappropriate, or the data that's being acted on isn't properly scrubbed. So it's all linked into some different. Yeah, you mentioned permission amplification. That's such a great term. And we also see the new types of identity-related incidents with AI in the mix. An AI trained in data set with embedded credentials, incorporating those patterns and those credentials into its outputs. You're effectively creating a credential leakage risk there as well that we hadn't anticipated. So building identity hygiene requirements for AI training data and as well as AI runtime environments is going to be a critical focus area for all of us probably in the next 5 years.
And we have to demand auditability and
Yep.
observability into the decision-making process. There's no way we can keep up with it in real time,
Yep. Yep.
right? We can't watch it in real time, but we have to be able to say, whoa, what just went wrong? And be able
Yeah.
to pull an audit trail and have it say, here's how I came to that decision. Here's what happened. Here's the steps that it took.
Yeah.
And I think that's right now, it's a big challenge in the space of people who are making AI out there, because they're moving so fast, right? They're moving so fast that observability and being able to have understandability, I think, is a term I heard recently.
Right.
That's that same problem. It's like, we have to be able to understand how a decision got made, and we're on the brink of losing the ability to do that.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I completely agree. Yeah, this has been a great conversation, and I know we've been talking a lot about challenges that aren't going anywhere anytime soon, and frankly continue to get more complex. But I wonder, if I bring us to a close, Matt, if there's any other, I'll say, identity risks overall that worry you or that you're thinking about as you look forward.
Sadly, like, one of the things that I'm trying to solve for is as old as time, which is when we never. I have this saying, which is, we never create our own problems; we just inherit them. And we inherit all of these different identities across all these different things. Some of them are 10 years old. I have friends in the business who have mainframe products living on mainframes that are 20, 30 years old, and they're not going anywhere.
Right.
So as all of these other parts are moving forward, I don't get a fresh start. I don't get to say, okay, clean slate, let's start with really organized and well thought out identities for humans, machines, and AI. Instead, I've got this mismatch of different identity providers, different authentication and authorization systems. I've got them across the cloud. I've got them in my intranet. So, like, does AI help me? Like, how do we get to the point where we address sort of the elephant in the room, which is not the identity accumulation that we talked about earlier on this call for a single human. That's a multi-thousand person problem. It's a multi-year problem across lots of different companies, and we're still not just grappling that to ground. It's almost like asset management, right? I heard this joke said, "Hey, everyone in the room, raise your hand if you're happy with your CMDB." No hands, right?
Right.
Still just struggle with assets. And identities is the same thing. Just, where are they? Do they still exist? Like what I would love to see is, in the industry, like, what are we doing? How can we approach just the grappling with all of the scope of some of these things that have accumulated over time? So AI is a big deal. Machine identities is a big deal. We have to work through all of those things. Third-party contractors, so hard.
Yeah.
There's this core sort of hygiene.
Right.
Is that a boring word, right? Just like, how do we get to a place where our hygiene matters?
Yeah. No, I agree. And so many teams, I mean, you made a great point. I mean, my team and I used to talk about this in my last company about, we have the accountability to protect assets and technology delivery outputs that are 18 minutes old, 18 days old, and 18 years old. And it's just all the disciplines and all the requirements to do that are so different, but the same team and the same folks are accountable for it. So, hey, Matt, this has been great discussion, really insightful perspectives. Thanks so much for sharing your insights with us today.
It's been my pleasure. Thanks for having me on the show.
Thank you, Matt. And that wraps up today's episode of Identity Radicals. Thanks for tuning in. And remember, in the world of identity, radical thinking leads to radical security. To see more Identity Radicals podcast content or other content, please subscribe to the Identity Radicals podcast on YouTube by scanning the QR code on the screen. Thank you, everybody.